Welcome to the worst nightmare of all. Reality.
Okay, what we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra dimensional beings.
Explore the lesser-known stories of our unknown world. Join the pursuit of the paranormal with Ash and Greg.
Hi Ash, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad, Greg. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. So today we're going to talk about something called Yowie. Now, on purpose, I've not looked into this at all because I thought, being our first one, it'll be a surprise for me as it is for everybody else. But what the hell is Yowie?
Yeah, well, I had the same reaction. I only sort of heard about it early this year. I listened to Howard Hughes' podcast, You Explained, and I mean, I'm a ufologist by nature, and that's where my main interest is. So when I'm listening to his podcast when I'm driving to work or whatever, I just sort of search for UFO episodes and listen to that while I'm driving. Or sometimes I'm driving and the episode finishes and just starts playing the next one.
Yeah.
And this happened, and the next episode was about Yowie. I'd never heard the word before. I was like, what the hell's a Yowie? So started listening, so I was driving. I can't change the channel or anything. Change to what I'm listening to because I'm driving. Can't use my phone. So just started listening to it, and I was like, oh, that's what a Yowie is. And then the stuff they're talking about was just like fascinating.
Okay.
So that's sort of how I got into learning about the Yowie, really.
So the next question again is, what the hell is a Yowie?
What is a Yowie? Well, to put it simply, Yowie is one of several names for basically it's the Australian version of Bigfoot.
Okay.
It's folklore again, like it is for most of the other types of Bigfoots around the world. It goes back in folklore for hundreds of years, and it lives in the Australian outback and resembles a large ape-like humanoid creature, like there's Bigfoot does and the Yeti in Asia. The term Yowie, the actual word, is believed to evolve from the word Yahoo, which has been described in stories going back to like the 1800s. And there's one case from a European settler from when the Europeans were going to Australia in 1842. And he talks about the natives of Australia believing in the Yahoo. And
so is that the Aboriginals? Aborigines, sorry.
So the natives, Australians, the Aboriginal people that lived in Australia before the colonists came over. And they believed in this Yahoo creature. And they described that as resembling a man of nearly the same height as a man. Long white hair, extraordinarily long arms, and in this case, say the feet turn backwards.
What?
So when they're running, the feet look like they're traveling in the opposite direction.
What the hell? Well, I'm just trying to picture that in my head. Legs on backwards, feet on backwards.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Okay.
So altogether they describe it as a hideous monster of an unearthly character and ape-like appearance. One of the earlier sightings was 1882, and naturalist Henry James McCooey claimed to have seen an indigenous ape on the south coast of New South Wales.
A few days ago, I saw one of these strange creatures. I should think that if it was standing perfectly upright, it would be nearly 5 feet high. It was tailless and covered with very long black hair, which was of a dirty red colour about the throat and breast. Its eyes were partially hidden by the matted hair that covered its head. I threw a stone at the animal, whereupon it immediately rushed off.
But it wasn't until the 1970s when the Yowie started making lots more appearances in the media, with sightings and news articles being published in the mainstream media, both in Australia and around the world. Reports have been made ever since. It's dropped down a bit in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. But from the 70s to the 2000s, it really got quite popular.
Okay.
Mainly Australia. Again, we don't really hear much about it in the UK. But that was sort of when it started getting a bit more mainstream. And there's even a chocolate bar called the Yowie Chocolate Bar, Which
course
is
there is.
aimed to kids, obviously. I think Cadbury's at one point had either bought them or were selling them over here. But then they stopped making them, and then I think they came back in Australia a few years ago. And it's obviously a chocolate bar shaped like
Yeah,
an appearance of a Yowie.
not the same flavour then. Maybe. I don't
Well, I hope not.
know.
They tend to smell of feces and wet grasses tends to be the smell that people report.
Yeah, it'd be quite a hard sell for a chocolate bar, wouldn't it?
Nice and Hershey's though.
Yeah, definitely. That's awful stuff. So is that something that they've that's only been witnessed like by when you said the European settlers, or has it gone back hundreds of years before we invaded Australia?
It does go back hundreds of years. The first reported sightings go back to like the 1870s.
Yeah.
From the settlers.
Yeah.
But when the colonisation first started, they were actually warned by the Aborigines of these ape-like creatures that inhabit the forests and the mountains.
Okay.
And it's been like in folklore basically for hundreds of years before the first recorded sightings.
Okay.
It's believed that there's a couple of species. There's the bigger one, which is between 6 and 10 foot.
So two different
Two of them. And a smaller species that's looks fully grown, like it's fully developed, but they come in at around 5 foot tall at the highest. There's been lots of reports of both species, but the main one is the bigger, that's up to 10, 11 foot in some reports. Absolutely huge.
With its feet on backwards, running in the
On backwards.
That would be. Oh, okay, that's weird.
But yeah, it's the Kuku Yalanji tribe of North Queensland, and they claim to have coexisted with the Yowie.
Yeah.
But they've got a long history of attacks from them as well. And from what I've been looking into, compared to Bigfoot in America and like the Yeti in Asia, is the Yowie seems to be a lot more aggressive.
Okay.
There's a lot of small reports of attacks and intimidation from the Yowie than you hear from Bigfoot reports.
Yeah, because that's in they like Yeti, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. They're all nobody ever really interacts with them, do they?
Yeah, so usually the scene, like when they get sighted, they seem to disappear into the bush.
Yeah.
And sight from a distance and not usually up close. There's one case I found, and it's 2018.
Yeah.
A truck driver from Queensland claimed that he was eye to eye with a 3 meter tall Yowie.
Jeez.
And the Yowie actually punched the bonnet of his truck. Like, just fists down. So he just obviously just put his foot down and just got the hell out of there.
Oh my God.
And lots of things like, because I was looking at all the different types of Yowie, because you got in North America, you've got Bigfoot, that's like in the Pacific Midwest and into Canada.
Yeah.
You've got the Yeti, which is from the Himalayan mountains.
Mm-hmm.
In Indonesia, they have what's called an orang pendek.
Okay.
And that translates as little man.
Okay.
And again, that's very similar to the smaller species of Yowie. And it's like developed, looks like an ape, very long hair, and they grow about 5 foot. Similar to the smaller Yowie. And in China, they have the Yadun, I think it's pronounced. Okay. And again, that's similar to the Yowie. But again, when everyone describes the interactions, it is mainly peaceful. Like they might warn them off in terms of like throwing rocks and throwing stones and stuff, but they're generally peaceful and they just disappear rather than confronted. Whereas with Yowie, a lot more reports have it being violent and being aggressive towards when they come into contact with.
It's weird because I like yourself, I'd never heard. I know they've got some very strange and horrible animals in Australia, spiders the size of plates and things that will attack. But I didn't realise that there was this Bigfoot creature out there. But so what is it? Do they think it's sort of like a native thing specifically surrounding the Aboriginals, or is it? Do we think it's something that you said it is similar to like the Chinese one? do they think they're sort of related, or?
I think it's quite hard to say, 'cause obviously when you compare the sightings and stuff, looking at the first sightings, it's all around the same time. So you've got the 1830s to the 1870s is when the first reported sightings are.
Yeah.
And so you must think that comparing a report in Australia, how would they know about something being reported in China
Yeah.
or America?
Yeah.
So it's not like you wouldn't think they've seen this report of something in America and then, oh, I'm going to see it now in Australia.
Yeah.
You got to think that they are like independent of each other.
Yeah.
Whether they're all related, did they all come from? I mean, well, it's quite hard to tell, but there are so many similarities between the descriptions and when people sketch them.
Yeah.
Like, you would say that they are related, and I mean, they could have been here for thousands of years before the continent split. I don't know. And they could all be from the same family or evolved from the same.
Because that's what I was thinking, is if, when all the continents were one, then, and when it's started splitting, that they sort of went off. Because that, you've got similar things with all the temples in all these different continents. They've got similar looks when they could never have been in communication with each other. So, bit of a strange one. Okay, next question. Has there been any sort of physical recordings of these things? Because that would be interesting if there's any like recordings or photos or sounds or anything like that.
There is some in terms of photo. Again, very similar to like with Bigfoot, ones that we do see about. Like, we hear a lot about Bigfoot. We don't hear much about Yowie. But again, it's sort of the same problems where there'd be photos, but it's just a blur in the forest. It's a bit of darker tree compared to the tree next to it. And it could look like the shape of a creature, but it's quite hard to tell. Because obviously, if you're coming face to face with one of these creatures, you're more thinking, I'm gonna get out of here, rather than let's get my camera out and start videoing it. Yeah, pretty. One of the things that do get photographed more is the piles of rocks and sticks that get left, which are said to be left by Yowie as signs that they've been in that area.
It's not like a Blair Witch type thing, is it?
A little bit.
Oh my god!
Look at these pictures now, and it's just like randomly in the middle of the forest, in the middle of nowhere, miles from anywhere, people just come across these big sticks, just all propped up, look like little teepees almost. Yeah. Just all these sticks all propped up together, and just piles of rocks, which with no other like signs of anything being there and humans being there, just these random collections of rocks or sticks together.
So does it sort of live near where those sticks are found, or what kind of house is the wrong word, but what kind of locations does it live in? Does it like live in a wood, or does it live in? Does it have a nest, or do they know? Or
yeah, so the environment, again, this is where something that is across the page really with all the different species from around the world is they all get seen in forests and especially mountainous regions. So like forests at the bottom of mountains. So that's the case for Yowie, for the Yetis that get sighted in the mountains below Himalayas. Indonesia and in China, it's the remote mountainous areas where they get mountainous but with forests. That's where they get seen.
So I went off on a bit of a tangent there about locations and whatnot, but the question is, have we got any, or is there any sound clips of Yowie?
Yeah, there's been quite a few recorded. I've got this one from June 2016. This is it's a whooping sound that's quite common with lots of Bigfoot sightings, especially. It's when you watch the documentaries on like Discovery Channel, when you have these Bigfoot documentaries, they all seem to feature these whooping sounds that you can hear like just basically in the distance when they go to the forest and the mountain areas. So put this on repeat a couple of times.
Cool. Now that is a weird sound.
Yeah, isn't it?
To be honest, that is a weird sound. It doesn't sound like an animal I've heard before. It doesn't sound like I don't know, like it almost sounds a bit like a bird sort of sound, but doesn't sound like a bird. It doesn't sound like a wolf or something like that.
It does sound like quite a lot of oomph behind it. It's like you think something big has made that noise, like in terms of the force, I guess, of the sound.
And I think it sounds like it's not necessarily far away, but you can tell it's loud from a distance as well. So yeah, nice. Bit weird to hear that. So I'll definitely have to make sure that if I go to Australia again, that if I hear that sound, I'll start panicking. So is there any other?
Yeah, this next one is, I think it's a lot more creepier. This is from March last year, 2019.
Okay.
In New South Wales, and this was it's called the Glowworm Tunnel.
Okay.
It's only about an hour and a half north of the Blue Mountains. And the Blue Mountains is where a lot of these sightings take place.
Yeah.
It's a massive. I mean, Australia is huge.
Yeah.
It's like nearly the size of the USA,
Mm-hmm.
which only got like 10% of the population.
Yeah.
And they're spread out a lot, mainly on the east coast.
Yeah.
So the outback is absolutely huge. These two men were at this glowworm tunnel in New South Wales, and they claimed they saw a 10-foot tall beast that was stalking them.
Yeah. In
this tunnel that's in New South Wales, and they recorded. They couldn't actually see the creature. They could felt like it was stalking them. They could sense like a presence, and they started hearing this noise. And they recorded this noise, and then they just started running. They just fled because you'll hear the noise yourself in a minute, and it is very frightening, especially you just alone.
Yeah.
Out in the wilderness, pretty much, and start hearing this noise, feeling like there's someone there. I wouldn't want to be there. And cryptozoologist Gary Opit, he listened to it, and he says he believes it's the best Yowie audio he's heard.
Okay, right. Let's
So yeah, let's listen to this one.
Let's listen. Yeah, so that is definitely weird, and that doesn't sound anything normal. That sounds very
horrifying.
abnormal. It's horrifying, and yeah, like you said a bit earlier, people don't take photos; they tend to just run.
Yeah, I
think I'd be running fast.
If I have phone out, I'll be calling for help. I'm getting the camera on.
No, that is an awful, horrifying sound. That's not a normal sound. So yeah, that's weird. That's weird.
One thing I will say though, so I've got another clip here, so I don't want to say what it is, but if we listen to this clip, and then I'll tell you what it is afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, interesting clip. I don't know what it is, but it does sound like a familiar sound. I'll be honest. It sounds normal. But what's that?
That's actually a dingo.
Okay.
So they're wild dogs. In America, the coyotes. It's the same.
Same thing.
Same sort of creature. They're wild dogs basically. So you can hear the sort of dogness in it.
Yeah, now you said what it is. Yeah, you can definitely. It sounds like I mentioned. It sounded a bit more normal. It sounded like a sound I've heard before. But again,
but if you would say hiking out and you're just hearing this noise, especially if you're on your own at night or something, I wouldn't be trusting that as a dingo. Again, I wouldn't want to be hearing that noise.
Something coming to kill you.
Yeah.
So when the Yowie is seen by people and the people who have reported sightings, are they sort of seen on their own? Are there multiple? Is it like families? Because I've seen stuff with the Yeti, and I'm sure I've seen stuff where people have said that they've seen them as with like smaller versions, like family. They appear to be a family, but
Yeah, so although they are often sighted alone, there's been quite a lot of reports of pairs, like a couple of these creatures. Obviously, it's hard to know if it's male and female, if they're just friends or if they're married, who knows. But that's some reports of like seeing two together, or even families, where there's like you can sort of see a family sort of grouping in the forests. And they do tend to stay in one area for many years.
Okay.
So they will stay sort of the general area where they are.
Yeah.
But they will, when looking for food, they can just walk for miles to get food.
Okay.
So they can be seen. So obviously, they, like most creatures, they don't want to bring any sort of predators back to where the family is. So they go looking for food miles from where they actually live, I guess, and then obviously bring back food back to the family.
Okay.
And they aren't sort of believed to be mainly herbivores, although that's reports of them killing pets and other wildlife as well, though.
Okay.
I think obviously living in a forest, I think a lot of the time it's just easier to find food in the bush rather than trying to kill animals.
Definitely. So there's one other bit that has always fascinated me about all these kind of things, and that's the relationship of like this cryptozoology stuff and paranormal and extraterrestrials, that kind of thing, because there's so much weird stuff out there. I just wonder if there's sort of any sort of UFO sightings nearby or any anomalous activity.
Yeah, well, in terms of Yowie, I was struggling to find anything specifically to connecting UFOs and sightings and Yowie sightings.
Yeah.
But further into I suppose in the whole Bigfoot world itself, there's lots and lots of reports that tie in with Bigfoot sightings and lights in the sky sightings.
Yeah.
And it's believed up to 20% of Bigfoot sightings coincide with a UFO sighting.
Okay.
Like a UFO event, so it is quite a high number.
Yeah, that's massive.
And there's a reason why people can believe that. There's one account from 1888. This was a meeting between cattle ranchers and a group of Native Americans in Northern California.
Yeah.
And the natives describe 3 crazy bears that descended from the sky in a small moon.
Oh, Jesus.
They left them in the woods, and then this small moon object took off, left these 3 crazy bears, and just left them in the forest.
Imagine seeing that. Well, I mean, if the backwards feet and the sounds are not bad enough, to see them come down from a spaceship and be left there, as if to say, you've been naughty, you can stay on Earth and just run rampant there. Jesus.
Yeah, and similarly, this is a bit more recent. This was 1973 in Ohio.
Yeah.
There's a woman and her daughter, and they woke up in the middle of the night and they saw a beam of light extending down from like an umbrella shape in the sky. So they sort of followed this beam of light and they could see it in the nearby woods. They then saw a greyish ape-like creature wandering towards this beam of light. So they're looking out the window and they saw this greyish ape-like creature just walking towards this beam of light. Before they know it, they both disappeared. The craft went, the light went, and the ape went. It just all disappeared. And that's similar to the Native American story.
So it seems to be a lot of reasons to stay out of forests.
Yes, I agree with that. But there's a cryptozoologist called Jack Carey. He studied Bigfoot for decades, and he believes it's very possible that Bigfoots are being abducted by UFOs or by aliens in the same way humans are.
Oh.
If they're obviously, you got abductees, have experiences. They're very similar to humans. They're just the same sort of build.
Yeah.
How they look. So it's quite plausible that abduct humans, have a study our DNA, our attributes, and do the same with Bigfoot.
Yeah, because they take cows and do their cow mutilations and try all the different species on Earth.
Yeah, and in both of these cases, that's sort of what they're describing.
Yeah,
it's like either going to a beam or coming from a beam of light, and it's like describes basically an abduction phenomena.
Yeah.
Them two stories, and one's from like 150 years ago, which is where do you even think of that? Like, you know what I mean? It's
that's it. It's like you say, nowadays you can go on the internet, do Google search, and you could pretty much copycat any story. But back then, no such luck.
Yeah, and one other theory is probably one you've probably heard about more is window areas throughout the world, and these connect basically our reality with parallel dimensions, alternative realities.
Yeah.
And this is like with the scientists now looking at multiverse and things like this and string theory. There could be infinite universes all around us that we just can't see. But these window areas, where there do tend to be a lot of paranormal activity, UFOs, lights in the sky, Bigfoot, ghosts, things like that.
Yeah.
And this is where they are connected, and Bigfoot could be an interdimensional traveller. That's just another theory that look at, because
it's interesting you say that, because I look into Skinwalker Ranch as well, which is another popular UFO event or location up in Utah, and they describe portals opening up and creatures coming out, not dissimilar to that kind of weird giant ape-like thing. So I suppose that lends more concrete to that theory as well.
Definitely. I mean, who knows at the minute?
Yeah, anything could happen this year, particularly.
Well,
I don't think it's going to be a surprise, would it? But that's interesting that there seems to be, or has been, witnessed accounts of effectively, like you say, alien abductions of Yowie, Bigfoot, that kind of thing. So very strange.
It's definitely a big rabbit hole you can go down when you start looking into this sort of stuff. Yeah,
definitely. Okay. So what do you think? Do you believe it's something that people are seeing, or is it some sort of wild person that's sort of just in the woods, or what do you?
I think there's something there. I think whether it's just a species that we've not found, because they are like known, good at concealing themselves, use the environment to hide.
Yeah.
And like these places like the Australian outback, they're that big. And they're finding new creatures and stuff all the time. There's no reason to say there isn't this. Could just be a small, like not many of them.
Yeah.
But like there's literally thousands of miles of bushland and forests and mountains, and I believe there's something. There's these creatures living out there. 100%.
Yeah, I think I would lean more towards that myself, based on the fact that it's not just recent sightings. If it was recent sightings and there's some dodgy video clip of clearly CGI'd person stretched and walking around, I would probably discount it. But if there's reports from like the 1800s of people describing stuff that people describe now as well, that they wouldn't have known or wouldn't have been able to copy, then that lends weight to it, most definitely. It's a strange world out there, and like you say, it's there's so much space, particularly in Australia, with all the outback and the central part, because like you said, most people are on the east coast, more towards the sea as a whole and the coast, so there's a lot of uncharted territory in the middle.
A lot of it.
Yeah, so who knows what's out there? Yeah, that's a really cool subject that I didn't know anything about until an hour ago, and something definitely to look into a bit more, especially if it's very similar to like Bigfoot, Yeti, all those kind of stuff. There's a
couple of for further research. There's a podcast by Sarah Bignell called the Yowie Central podcast, and I think this is on about 50 episodes now. And each one basically, she asks guests on, and they're talking about their experiences and their sightings.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear more about sightings, and especially recent ones, check out that podcast. And there's so much stuff out there.
Yeah, so like you said, I think it's a bit of a rabbit hole you can go down as well, I suppose.
Definitely.
Right, so thanks for joining us. That wraps up our first episode. That was about Yowie, the Australian Bigfoot. If you enjoyed the podcast and enjoyed listening to us and would like to listen to some more, we've got some great episodes coming up soon. We're going to be talking about Stardust Ranch. We're going to be talking about aliens and their link to the paranormal. We've got all manner of different, interesting and slightly different subjects, including one I'm particularly looking forward to, especially as we hit the 40th anniversary of it, but an alternative Rendlesham Forest episode. So if you like the sound of that, give us a rating, 5 out of 5 on your podcast provider on iTunes. That really helps us out, and that helps spread the word that we're trying something new. We're trying something a little bit different to what other podcasts are doing. We're not just going to do the normal Skinwalker Ranch. Everybody knows about Skinwalker Ranch, but we're looking at other places and other types of stories that you may not know about, which, as I say, I didn't know about Yowie till the start of this episode. So knowledge is power, as they say, and it's always good to learn new stuff. So thanks for joining us, and we will hopefully see you and hear you on the next episode.
Pursuit of the Paranormal with Ash and Greg.